I would like to welcome you all here in the region of Primorie, and I cannot but agree with our moderator who said that the Russian Far East is a critical region for us, and this week I have traveled over Kamchatka and Sakhalin, and I have acquainted myself with the economy and agribusiness of Primorie, and I can corroborate that it has a large potential. And here the opportunities for investment attraction are large. And the labor force here is really highly skilled and professional and responsible. And I would tell you frankly that I was surprised with their potential and managerial potential, because there are a lot of creative people who understand what they do and who know the essence and specificity of their regions, as well as their potential. Because sure, it is a vast area, and every constituency of the Russian Federation has its growth opportunities, and the resources and reserves that we are talking about are really immense. And specifically, I would say that probably regrettably, the market of production and consumption is such that made the Russian Far East a territory of fishery, production, port infrastructure, production of goods and infrastructure, of services, leaving agriculture somewhere behind. And all the procurement was always met by different supplies from other regions. But having looked into all the opportunities and potential, today we realistically comprehend that what, for example, Kuban, Rostov, the region of Belgorod, Bryansk, Ulyanovsk, Ryazan can afford is also available here. And the head count, the number of population here is not that large, a little bit over 6 million. And really, we have this potential to feed ourselves here, and to do it in a more interesting and profitable way, coming up with jobs and tax base. And sure, employment will benefit a lot from here. And the Russian Far East population today naturally shows demand for local produce, and people today would like to feel and sense where pork, lamb, milk is produced, which farmer, which producer makes that all. And there is a trend for organic food because of their quality. And I'm sure that the Russian Far East really boasts large potential here. And I'm absolutely confident that in the near 5 years, this task can be met. And resorting to figures, and the task of the present forum, naturally, is to motivate our large and medium-sized investors, both from this country and abroad. So we have to prove them that food production in the Russian Far East is profitable and promising. And the niches that we currently have are obvious. Talking about vegetables, according to the information I have here, the vegetables that was produced in open soil is 407,000 metric tons, and what is needed is 683, and The potential, therefore, is really huge in terms of vegetables and produce that are imported from other territories of the world. And as for greenhouse vegetable, here we produce only 22,000 metric tons, and what we need is 74,000. Therefore, 52,000 is in deficit. As for berries, we produce 32,000, and we need 600. Therefore, 500,000 is imported or taken from other regions of the country. I understand that not all can grow apples and other fruit and vegetables. We understand that the Far East is different in terms of precipitation and climate, and some part of this region is in favorable conditions. As for cattle and poultry meat, here we produce almost 210,000 tons, and what we need is 665. So again, we have a shortage of almost 500,000, which proves a high potential, and none regions in this country show this shortage. As for milk, we produce 536,000 tons, and what we need is 1,200,000, and this is a product that cannot be taken from thousands of kilometers away because of medical regions. So this 1,200,000 metric tons is a huge niche, and I understand that all the constituencies of the Russian Federation have to think about it. And here at home, you have to produce milk, you have to process milk, and the demand for milk and meat is pretty solid here. As for egg, the deficit is also over 1 million. And addressing these questions of internal consumption and import substitution here in the Russian Far East, I believe we can come up with the necessary capacities for milk and meat and grain. For example, for soybean, we are going to tap cross-border markets, and here in Asia-Pacific, the population is large, 40% of the whole world. Therefore, it is God's wish that makes us deal with this. And today, we deal also with territories of outpacing development or priority development, and such companies as Media Trade and Rosagro, Primorye, Amur Agro Center are the platforms that really can generate huge capacities for the prospects of raw materials and processed products. I believe that it is really a promising area, and we have to look into it at governmental level from the Ministry of Agriculture and other ministries, and we have to generate huge impetus to grab this market, because some time ago we really lost this food market in Russia, and now this decision on development of these territories for investment attraction that will give benefits in terms of tax duties, that will give preferences in terms of investment and governmental infrastructure, as well as other preferences, will really boost the investment, both home and foreign. And in my view, again, this decision enabled our neighbors to solve this food issue. And sure, we had to think about it a decade or 2 decades ago. Here in the Russian Far East, we have talked and discussed it a lot, but the decision was taken only some time ago. But it's great that it has been done, because now we can address the investors saying that we have done that. We have tackled this issue. Furthermore, from the federal center, and we, by the way, also consider complexities in terms of logistics and production curbs. So we have made decisions on main investment projects for milk, vegetables, breeding centers, and beef meat. So we are going to subsidize the interest rate, and we will have from 2 to 5% for 10 years for investment projects, and up to 25% will be reimbursed from the federal budget. I mean, 25% of costs for greenhouses and dairy farms. And sure, if a greenhouse is around 1 billion rubles, it means that 250 million rubles will be reimbursed. So it will make the project cheaper for this amount of money. And that is the route that the developed countries grew their economies, and that is the route that Asia-Pacific region is following now, and that is the only way that we can attract really sound and robust investors and gain trust from them, because they have to hear this signal from the government and invest their assets here. And we import 2 million metric tons of soybeans into Russia every year. So that is really an area that we can work in. We have to, again, attract investment and employ new technologies. We have to develop new territories, and therefore we can gain an additional 500,000 soybeans at least. And that is really our huge potential, and that is something that we are underusing. And again, we have reserves in productivity, because if we look at all these kinds of produce, soybeans, corn, and so on, we have, for example, 20 centers and on corn, and we might have more. So correct use of technologies and development of territories, again, will benefit us a lot, and that will make this production again cheaper. As for fishery, yesterday we discussed it with, again, processors and fishers. Here we also have a huge potential, and fish is our export goods, and fish is our grain and oil and gas. That is really our resource and what our nation can boast with. And we are in top 5 in terms of our potential. But again, regrettably, the last decade made us lose a lot of opportunities. And such countries as Japan and China have generated huge capacities on freezing and deprocessing of fish. They came up with unique trading platforms that became centers of attracting investment. And first of all, the Russian Far East, that is geopolitically really beneficial, can give us a lot. And we have discussed it with all the governors, and everybody agreed that we have to come up with a fish hub, and we have to form our price here, and our fishers have to store fish in freezing units to afterwards export them, and we have to attract investment. We have to address issues of processing and storing and using these fish resources. Of course, it will take a lot of governmental investment, and at the governmental level, we are ready to consider all these questions, and in the near future, agreed with all the ministries and agencies to come up with a unique farm that will be really something that our country can boast with.
And this will be a huge political victory in case we take our production to the international level, and this will be part of our export. So that's why I see huge potential here. And to me, the future of the Far East region and the fact that Vladivostok became totally different. We built a lot of sites. We upgraded the infrastructure. I mentioned yesterday, and I would like to repeat that we need to trust in our future. We need to put ambitious goals before us. And I would like to remind you of the case of the Sochi Olympics. There were a lot of skeptics. They were said, oh, we don't have time to build up the infrastructure. Others would say we would lose the Olympics. There were voices saying that we would build sites and they would ruin very shortly. And all those forecasts, well, they didn't come true. Also here in Vladivostok, we heard that we will have no time to build the bridge, but we saw how it happened, and the sense is that it always people are accustomed to this infrastructure. And as I said, we need to feed the population of the Far East region, of Vladivostok region. We need to create new resources for the region and for the population. And if we set those ambitious goals at the government level, and if we give those signals to the business, it would be helpful both to the Far East regions and to all our country. And I'm an optimist, and I believe that today we will be able to achieve this goal, and the Far East will become a growth point and very attractive region. And I would like to give you some example for aquaculture, production of fish in artificial conditions, and people are actively engaged in this. So we produce about 160,000 tons aquacultures and marine cultures. And as for China, they produce 63 millions annually. So the potential is huge. We have more rivers in the world than anyone. We have a lot of creative people, a lot of entrepreneurs. So if we would give the signals to the society, and if we would support it with government-backed programs, then I'm sure they will be able to work actively for the experts. And before we thought that production in China is not eco-friendly, and those products, suits or foodstuffs are not of high quality. And in 10 years, the entire world realized that the world is flooded, even in the industrially developed countries, with those products. And I'm sure that all talks about huge preferences and cheap labor, well, this is something to think of, but I don't think they are the key factors. And so here in the Far East, we need to feed ourselves and also sell for the export and for other regions. Thank you.